So I wanted to do just a quick video tonight before I head to bed. I've just been working on preparing slides and videos for hopefully a live stream tomorrow morning, which would be this evening for you if you are in Canada and America. So just keep an eye on your notifications. Hopefully I will manage to do that. I know I've done very little this week. It's been a long week. I've not been well. And of course today was Amira's vet appointment, so I realised that in terms of content I've really not put a lot of new stuff out, only those shorter videos that really aren't anything new. So I actually do have a fair number of videos planned for Jack and Lily, but like I said, because it is getting quite late in the evening, I thought I'd tackle this one, which is not reliant on any clips and which is probably going to be shorter than any of the other ones that I would be working on. So this is something that concerns me. As you can see from the thumbnail for this video, I want to talk about Cyndy, about Cheryl, Hayley, even Hayden, number of people who are on the periphery of this case. Now, before you get your backs up, no, I don't want to share gossip about them, and that's what I actually want to talk about. So I'm going to start by reminding people of who was on the property when these children allegedly went missing. That is Malaya Brooks Murray, Janie McKenzie, Daniel Martell. They're the people that we know of that were on the property. Now, while admittedly Malaya hasn't really given us much to talk about with regards to what happened to Lily and Jack, up until quite recently we had quite a lot of things coming out from Durwood, from Janie, from Daniel, all in relation to the disappearance of the children. And while obviously none of these three individuals are all that credible, there is always an element of truth in these sorts of stories that come out. They're not just randomly making stuff up. There is always an element of truth. Now, thankfully, none of those clowns are any good at telling lies, so we were able to figure out pretty early on that none of them were being overly truthful and that there were major lies and inconsistencies. With Daniel especially, that's given us the opportunity to learn his tells, to figure out what it is that he does when he's not being truthful. But they've also given us so much material that we've been able to actually sit and compare different versions of different parts of the timeline, so it's been quite useful. I've still got plenty that I want to go through with regards to all of that. When it comes to Daniel and Malaya's relationship, there's a lot there that we've been able to discover, not just from trying to wade through the different lies from Daniel and Malaya, but from the accounts from these girlfriends of Daniel. You start to put all these bits together and it does start to form a clearer picture. So while obviously it's not nearly anything like what we had with the Maddie Soto case, where we just had reams and reams of information in documents. Like, I think one of the first documents that came out was 500 pages long, and then the next document that came out was like 1,000 pages long. And then with that we had additional reports from various law enforcement individuals. We had interviews with Stefan, interviews with Jen, with Stefan's parents, Maddie's biological father. There was so much that we could dig into with Maddie's case, right up until when it went to trial. But even still, there is still plenty that we can talk about in relation to Lily and Jack's disappearance, in relation to what could have possibly happened, in relation to Malaya's role, Daniel's role, in relation to how we got there in the first place. So how is it that for some content creators, the topic of conversation has now been or become gossip about all these people on the peripheral who were not there when Lily and Jack went missing. I'm just struggling to see how it is justifiable to spread what is essentially personal information about people that is unverified. It is gossip, it is rumour. And it's got nothing to do with Lily and Jack. Okay, so let's start with Cheryl. Cheryl, by her own admission, has not seen those children in many years. We've heard from Hayley that actually Cheryl was never overly close with Malaya up until when the children went missing. And yet, this week there's more rumours being put out about Cheryl that have no connection whatsoever with Lily and Jack's disappearance. I don't care what Cheryl does in her private life. I don't care if she's a pole dancer and a raving alcoholic, which she's not. They're just things that I pulled out because I don't wish to share the gossip that's being shared. But it seems that suddenly people are interested in Cheryl's private life. Okay, I'm going to skip straight to talking about Hayden, because there are allegations that have been made against Hayden. But here's the thing, and I would like to know what the law is in Canada with regards to spreading information on what should actually be a sealed file, because to the best of my knowledge, Hayden's only recently turned 18. These allegations that are being made against Hayden sound to me like they occurred before he was an adult, and yet I've seen screenshots of things that are allegedly official documents that have been shared around. I've heard all sorts of gossip in relation to Hayden. This is a young guy who is essentially still a teenager, and people are sharing malicious gossip about him online. That gossip is going to stay there forever. Even if there's any truth to these rumours, there is a reason why when crimes are committed by someone under 18, that those case files are sealed. It is to give them an opportunity to make good. It comes from the understanding that for a person who is under 18, that their brain is still growing and developing. The human brain isn't fully developed until a person reaches the age of 26. So for someone under the age of 18, those decisions that they make as a teenager or as a young child should not be something that is held against them for the rest of their life, because they will grow up, their brain will finish developing, and the person they are as a 30-year-old will be very, very different from the person they were as a 17-year-old, for example. Think back to when you were 17 or 18 and some of the dumbass things that you might have done at that age. And just imagine that someone posted those things on the internet where anyone could find them. Imagine being in your mid-30s, for example, and you're on the shortlist for your dream job, and the potential employer is looking at you and another person maybe, and they decide to go and have a look, see what sort of history you've got. And there comes something up from when you were 17. It shouldn't matter, but it always does. There is always a bias with things like that. And how does any mistakes that Hayden has made, anything that Hayden has allegedly done, how does that relate to the disappearance of Lily and Jack? Because from what we're hearing, yes, he lived with Patty, but he only went to the trailer when he was driving Patty there. Sure, there's rumours now, but they're not verified. But people are treating them like they are verified information. With no proof whatsoever, people are suddenly aligning Hayden with someone who is potentially a child killer. How is that justifiable? How is that ethical? What about Hayley? Hayley is a young mother. Hayley had not seen her niece and nephew in a couple of years because, like so many other people, she'd been frozen out. Malaya moved to Gairloch Road and suddenly people like Hayley were cut out of these children's lives and didn't see them. Hayley's never been to the trailer up until when the children went missing. And then she jumped in really quickly and went to help search. No, she didn't plant evidence. And there is nothing to suggest that other than rumours started by Daniel. Now, I've heard mention of some pretty malicious rumours this week relating to Hayley. Things that have absolutely no connection whatsoever with the disappearance of Lily and Jack. And I do not understand why people think it is acceptable to spread rumours that could be hurtful to someone, rumours that could potentially even be embarrassing to someone, rumours that could stir up a traumatic experience for someone, if any of it is actually true. Why is it acceptable to be putting that out on a YouTube video and discussing this person who has nothing to do with the disappearance of Lily and Jack? Now, I mentioned last week in terms of Hayley, someone was like, oh, you should interview Hayley or something like that. And I made it quite clear then that I feel that Hayley should protect herself by only talking with Sunny in terms of if she's going to discuss the case, if she's going to discuss her relationship with Malaya or with the children. However, I'm just going to put this out there because I've noticed that Sunny must be very, very busy right now because she hasn't posted in quite a while. So I'm just going to put this out here right now. If Hayley needs help to know how to get rid of those videos that are being out there online, if she needs help going through the process, then she is welcome to contact me and I will help her with that. And I will say right now, I will not be quizzing her about anything to do with the case. I will just be helping her as an individual who has had malicious rumours spread about her, and I will be helping her with the process to have those videos pulled down because they are a privacy invasion. They are a breach of YouTube's terms of service. And that goes for anybody else who is connected to this case who has malicious rumours being spread about them by content creators. If you do not know the process for having those videos pulled down, then I will not be asking you anything about the case. I will put that, I'm saying this publicly now, but I am available to help you navigate things like that because I do not want to see people being victimised simply because they have a connection to this case. And, one of the things that I think people aren't actually realising here with spreading these rumours, especially when it comes to Cheryl, Hayley and Hayden. I think Cheryl's got children, I'm not sure. But we know Hayley's got children. We know Hayden's young, so down the track he might end up having children of his own. And do you want to be the person that is responsible for, in 10 years' time, one of those children being bullied by other children at school over information that's been put out online about one of their parents. So when it comes to these younger people connected to the case, people like Hayley who have young children, then not only are you victimising them, not only are you not doing anything that is remotely helpful for Lily and Jack, but you are potentially victimising young children in the future. You are putting out content that could be damaging for children at a later date. And you know what the really frightening thing about that is? We have seen a huge uptick in the last 10, 20 years of young people who end up ending themselves because of bullying, because of the added factor that comes in with online information. You know, the rumours that I've heard relating to Joe Smith, to Earl Martell, to other members of the Mackenzie clan, to Cyndy, they are nothing but malicious rumours. There's no maybe there is truth, but if there is, it's none of our business. It doesn't get us any closer to understanding what happened with Lily and Jack. It doesn't get anybody any closer to finding Lily and Jack or to achieving justice. All it does is it spreads malicious gossip and it takes the focus off Lily and Jack. And here's the thing, pretty much all these malicious rumours are coming from one individual, this Anita person. She claims to have been really good friends with Cyndy and really good friends with Wade. And yet she is spreading malicious gossip about Cyndy, about Malaya, about other members of their family. And the thing is, this is someone who, when you look at her Facebook page, on her page, Cyndy Murray comes up 3 times. That is all. The first 2 times are in May, after the children went missing. There are those 2 times where there is one photo of her and Cyndy and one reel, which is a photo of her and Cyndy with some typing over the top of it. And the thing is, even though she tagged Cyndy, Cyndy never responded. And then later in the year, she made a post wishing Cyndy happy birthday, and Cyndy never responded. There is no interaction on her Facebook page from Cyndy or Wade. Not before the children went missing and not after the children went missing. Now, I made a mistake in a video that I put out last week where I claimed that there'd only been one post about Lily and Jack and that had been quite some time ago. Well, having gone back through and looked, that post about Lily and Jack was her sharing the missing poster on the same day that she joined that Facebook page, 16th of February this year. We're talking 10 months after the children went missing. Presumably the same day that she decided to contact Belinda. On her many, many posts, when she talks about Cyndy, she says was friends with Cyndy. So it seems like her and Cyndy have had some sort of falling out and are no longer friends. And yet people are not questioning that and questioning if maybe all this gossip that she's sharing is out of spite. But ask yourself this, if you are one of these people that she's gone to with gossip about the Martell family or the Mackenzie family, given that she hadn't seen Malaya since Malaya was 20, how do you think that she had that information conveyed to her? Even if she was staying at Cyndy's place for the 2 hours or the 3 weeks or the 3 days or whichever version of the story it is. Do you really think that Malaya will have confided that sort of stuff in with her? Some of it is stuff that I doubt Malaya would have even known. You have a woman whose Facebook page is dotted with multiple posts relating to those files that got that royal sacked from his job. The files that America's president is allegedly all through. Seems like she has an obsession with that, and she's sharing stories about people connected to this case that sound like they're inspired by that information. And people think she's credible. This woman is in it for the attention. I think it was about the 22nd or 23rd of February or something. She posted 30 times, roughly, on her Facebook page. Post after post after post. That's not normal. That is someone desperate to get someone to actually pay attention to them. I've heard the argument that, well, people listened to Durwood and they gave him a place to talk. Why not allow her to talk? There's a difference. Yeah, Durwood, we knew from the beginning that he was full of BS, full of lies. But his BS and his lies was in direct relation to Lily and Jack. It was talking about Malaya, talking about Daniel, talking about what may have happened to Lily and Jack. It was something that we can listen to and try and find those little nuggets of truth somewhere amongst all the lies. Whereas this woman is basically out there just spreading malicious gossip about anyone that knows someone connected to the case. And honestly, if you ask me, her stories are even less believable than Durwood's stories. This whole notion of Cyndy's maroon car being seen at the location where the blanket was later found at like 10:40 the morning that the children were reported missing. That's physically impossible because Cyndy wasn't in the area at that time. Hayden wasn't in a car with Cyndy because Hayden had to drive Patty there. Hayley wasn't there because she was working. And yet people jumped onto this story, which apparently has now been made members only, which it should just not be there at all. But people have jumped on this story as being something truthful. Oh, she sold it, the vehicle, really soon afterwards. It was such a hurry that she didn't take any personal belongings out of her vehicle. Who does that? Belinda made a comment to Sunny very early on in the case, probably in one of the first instances when she was on Sunny's channel, and she said that she didn't really care if what people were saying was not factual, if people weren't really on target in terms of what they were discussing, so long as they were still talking about Lily and Jack. Well, this is not still talking about Lily and Jack. This is not spreading awareness. If you knew nothing about this case and you clicked on a video that was telling gossip about Hayley, well, you'd be sitting there thinking, what's this got to do with 2 missing children? If you'd only just heard about this case and you wanted to learn more about it, but it seems like you're clicking on videos on YouTube and none of those videos are giving you any information about Lily and Jack or about the 3 people who were on the property when Lily and Jack went missing, you're not going to stick around. I've said this before, I followed the Summer Wells case really, really closely when she first went missing. And then several months in, I'm not sure how long it took, but suddenly you had all these extra characters being introduced. And I was just like, this just isn't it for me anymore. I think from memory it was June 2021 that Summer went missing. And like I said, I followed it very, very closely at first. There were a number of channels who I was watching their content every time it came out. And then in August that same year, only a few months later, just at the end of August, we had the Gabby Petito case happen. And that was massive. That's got to be one of the biggest cases I've ever seen in terms of the amount of attention that it got. And like so many other people, it drew my attention, and I was following that so closely. And that took a while to run its course. You know, Gabby was finally found, and then there was a big long search for Brian, and so much ridiculous stuff going on there. But then his remains were found also. And it had been a really, really long time between when we heard that Gabby was missing to when all that sort of resolved. And for me, yeah, I was interested in what was going on with the Summer Wells case. But I hadn't been following it for several months. And what had happened in that time is that it had just spiraled to this conversation about people on the periphery who I didn't even know who they were. They only had some vague connection to Candace or Don or someone else on the periphery of the case. And it seemed like whatever content creator I clicked on, they were busy talking about these people. There was no talk of Summer at all. Very little talk of Candace or Grandis or Don or any of this stuff. So I clicked off and I stopped following Summer's case completely. Yes, if there's news updates that are official news updates, then I'll take a bit of a peek. But I don't give it my attention. And that's where we are headed here. If this just becomes a gossip fest about people who have no connection to the disappearance of Lily and Jack, then this case is just going to dwindle, just like Summer's case. Now I know there's people who follow these cases that get into all the gossip and all the drama. And, okay, well and good for them. But I think people need to recognise that the gossip and the drama hurts people. The gossip and the drama takes us further away from the case. So when you see a video that's gossip about Hayley, that's gossip about Cheryl, consider the impact on them and the people around them. If it's someone who has children, consider the impact on their children, the future impact on their children. And ask yourself if you really, really want to watch that content, knowing that by watching it, you are helping to encourage this sort of rumour mongering. You know, I get it. Right now, things are pretty quiet with this case. There's not really any new information coming out. So for content creators, there's choices to be made. Do you have things that you still haven't discussed that you want to go through? Have you got a list? Like I do, I have a page where I can't think what the app is called, but it's like little sticky notes on a board, but it's in an app. And I have countless videos listed for this case that I haven't addressed yet. So I go to those in terms of what I want to discuss. A lot of the time, there's incidental stuff that comes up along the way that prevents me from getting to them. But I do go and I look at the things that I haven't discussed or that I want to discuss in more depth. And that's how I approach it. Some people, it seems that when they've run out of ideas, then they go for the gossip. Well, I think as content creators, we need to be better at planning our content. So if you're running out of ideas for a case that you are covering, go back over videos of interviews. Go back over the documents. Go back over newspaper articles. Go back over news media stories. And you will find things that raise questions, things that suddenly do need discussion. But if you can't do that, if you're stuck, move on to another case. And I hate saying that because I hate being at this stage with a case where you go looking to see who else is still covering the case and you see that so many people have moved on to something that's paying better money or moved on because they've run out of ideas. But at the end of the day, it is better to move on to another case and just come back and discuss this case when you've got something to say, as opposed to going off at a tangent or spreading malicious rumours that are going to drive people away permanently from following the case. Anyway, the main goal of this video was to point out that people like Hayley, Cheryl, Hayden, even Cyndy, aren't the people that we should be focusing on. And certainly their private lives don't have a bearing on what happened with Lily and Jack. It is just fuel for gossip. And I think we need to focus back on Lily and Jack, the people around them. Sure, talk about people who are trying to steer the narrative. Talk about their motivation, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, what it is they're doing. But let's not talk about people who the only thing that they've done is, well, they haven't really done anything. They're simply connected to somehow as a friend or as a relation to Malaya or Daniel. And they have got nothing to do with the disappearance of these children. If you honestly believe that Cyndy drove to Lansdowne Road at 10 o'clock in the morning with Hayden and Emily and Hayley in the vehicle and planted a piece of blanket from Gearlock Road on Lansdowne Road when it's just completely impossible, I don't know what to say to you here. We need to use logic. We need to use critical thinking. Question the stories that are being told, the gossip that is being shared. Ask, why is this being shared? Ask, how does it relate to the case? Ask, who benefits from this being shared? Because that might help you to understand why that is coming out in the first place. And I'm pretty certain that the understanding is not going to have anything to do with Lily and Jack's disappearance. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm sure I've given heaps of ammunition to those people who enjoy criticising my style. But you know what? I don't care. I'm here for justice for Lily and Jack. So if people don't like the way I do my channel, they don't have to watch. They don't have to come to my channel. I'm not going to change the way I do things just because some people don't like it. So hopefully from tomorrow I should be able to get back on track in terms of my content, getting things out regularly. Hopefully I can start getting back into doing some live streams. I'm hoping to do a live stream tomorrow morning. I'm not going to make promises, but I'm hoping to. So keep an eye out. There should be more content coming out from me consistently, touch wood. So on that note, thanks for listening. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Also, please hit the like button and please leave a comment below. So thank you, and I'll catch you in the next one.